Hi guys, again this is Tryke, Gutierrez, the co-founder and CEO of Tier One Entertainment, also co-owner of Blacklist International. And I created this podcast called More Than Just Games to be able to share what really happens inside the business of esports and all the other startups out there, right? So here with me is Chris, actually a good friend of mine. Also, we met way back, I think in 2019 or like 2018. I forgot what year already, but feel free to introduce yourself, Chris.
Hi guys. So Tryke, thanks for having me. I'm My name is Christopher Top, and I'm the founder of Social Groups back then. And then we got sort of knew each other when we started something called Captivate, which is our esports marketing arm. But eventually, I merged with another company called Cause Effect, and today we are known as Digitally Asia. So today I'm the CEO of Digitally Asia, which owns all these brands put together
Yeah, so I
in
understand that
Malaysia.
yeah, you've been, like in the business and advertising space for a long time already. Like after I have met you, I kind of like stalked your profile on LinkedIn and looked into like all of your achievements in terms of how you've innovated the advertising space through technology in
Mhm.
Malaysia. Like can you talk about like where is your inspiration coming from in terms of the advertising space and pushing it further in terms of technology?
So in terms of inspiration, right? Like I attend a lot of events, and I tend to steer towards things that are, technology based, fast moving. So this includes the currently taboo word, right? The Web3 space as well. And I just put myself in the places where there's infinite amount of possibilities. So today you hear about ChatGPT. Last year you'll be talking about blockchain and the cryptocurrency space. I've been into all of this. I think, but most importantly, I try to see whether how can advertising and marketing work in all these new things. So yeah, pretty much just putting myself in the space, making sure I'm around leaders who are talking about these new technologies and just being involved in it in some way or another.
And I've seen like your profile, right? Like you've been a CEO of multiple companies, and the term CEO at times is too celebrated or too scrutinized, obviously, because if you're running a company, especially in a startup environment, like there will be a lot of challenges and there will be a lot of hard decisions that you have to make. So I guess talking from a CEO to a CEO level, right? Like to you, like what's the hardest part of the job, like as a CEO?
Right, I follow you too, and I really admire you for all the honesty, that you lay out to the people who follow you, to the leaders that you have to lead, and even the KOLs that one at some point do count on you, right? And I think that's really the biggest challenge of all, especially going through times like these. I mean, no one would consider a epidemic like the COVID-19 to happen, right? No one would consider like banks like Silicon Valley Bank to just suddenly shut down. I mean, these are what we call as the black swans, and black swans happen every now and then, sure, but wow, we were experiencing like one or two in 2 years, or in a couple of 3 years. So I think that's the biggest challenge. How do you lead the team through these challenges, and being really honest with them, and being really helping them if we can't help them, right? I mean, there are chances where some of these jobs get obsolete, or even that we really don't have the cash to hold them through. And try I you remember Kendrick.
Yes.
He was the one that connected us together. If he didn't sit on that table with Mike, and Mike said, hey, you should meet Tryke and Lodia, and this tier one entertainment guys. And if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be here today. The merging would have happened because Kiet, from Geek Fam wouldn't have found me again. So today Kendrick is no longer with us since last year, and it was the painful moment. I mean, imagine a guy that I've been working with for 5 years, and to know that our directions no longer go on the right same path, because he wants to be more of a creator, and we're sort of struggling as well. That was about 3 years back during the first COVID that happened. But you know what? We are leaders, so we have to go through all this. We suffer more than normal, but that's the nature of what we do, right? So today, I'm so happy to see Kendrick really doing so well with Candy Life, and me in my where we're going ahead with Kiet and all. we are moving towards the better direction as well. So we become better because we've gone through these challenges.
Okay, yeah, that's really true. I think in its truest form, right? Like sometimes going through life as a CEO is really a difficult, like path, because there's on one hand there's transparency, but on the other hand there's a certain responsibility of what do you share, because you all know, for a fact that you don't want to burden people with the problems that at times, because there are certain timings for just burdening people with problems, right? Like if you know for a fact that a group of your managers are already managing this set of problems that they're dealing with today, and you need all of these things to be solved, then you kind of like think ahead and say, maybe this is not the time to share this bad news, or maybe this is not the time to add more work and all that, because you're always factoring in morale, you're factoring in bandwidth, you're factoring in like a lot of things that come together with leading a team, really, right? And I think letting go of like a person you've been able to work with for a long time, because you're respecting his dreams as well, I think that's really a painful thing to go through, right? So I've experienced that multiple times, whether it's an obsolete job, or maybe a change in direction, or maybe a change in life cycle. At times,
Mm,
if you're a CEO, like you just gotta go, you just gotta move forward regardless of, like all of the other factors changing around you. You need to be in a way, like the most concrete person in the room and say, you know what, we're pushing through, you know what, we need to go through this, and all that. And I think that's what I also appreciated, my fellow CEOs, like you, right? So I think going into that conversation, black swans, I think I like the way how you worded it, where not a lot of black swans really come out in a
mhm.
lifetime. Sometimes it doesn't come out in 10 years, but for us, like both, we've been through the pandemic, the Web3 collapse, like
Mhm.
now the banking collapse in Web2, all of these things in just the
Yes,
past 3 years, right?
that's right.
We all know that as a CEO, we need to be forward thinkers, and there needs to be
Mhm.
business plans, and there needs to be a long-term thinking about how do we go about the next years, how do we go about each of the things that we need to go through in terms of unit economics. And then boom, we then become hit by the pandemic. Then boom, like what happened in Web3 happened, and then now with everything that's happening, fear in general is in the market,
That's
and then
right. That's
especially
right.
in the outlook of the economy. So I think, how do you deal with that? Like for you personally, like how did you deal with that? Because for me it was a different experience, but for you, like how was that for you? How has the past 3 years been?
So I've got an additional element of challenge mixed within this whole, being a CEO, leading my company and all, which is my family. Over the about 2 years ago, I had my first child, my first
Yeah.
son, and his name is Aiden. And he's the best thing that ever happened to me. It's not something that as we certainly planned for, not the having a baby, but having a baby within the challenging times. So I realized that there are a lot of people just like me. When you've been hearing all these stories shared on TV, shared on the radio, especially on the social media net, where there are a lot of challenges faced by CEOs through both not only in their work family but also in their personal family. So what happened was that me being me, I tried. I'm a vulnerable guy. I think I prefer to share, and I see that as a way to ask for help. I think that's the main word, to ask for help. And I think not a lot of people ask for help.
Mhm.
And I think that's what got me through, because I got a lot of invites, right? I got a radio invite because of a LinkedIn article I wrote about closing a company. The I project, which is essentially the shirt I'm wearing now, which is a social enterprise that's meant to develop youth leaders, and had to close that down because during that time it was like, again, it's the worst time for a lot of people, right? And I had to make one company survive, so the other one had to go. I also spoke about my problem that I have with my wife, you know um, having a son during that time when we had no support from our parents. They were locked down and they were elderly, right? We didn't want to create necessarily more than enough exposure than they already have, buying food and whatnot. And so I shared, I really shared it out, and the story got picked up by the radio. The story got picked up by mental health advocates and companies. And you've seen a lot of these coming up right now, right? Advocates of entrepreneurs speaking up, of parents speaking up, of generally everyone just had an issue and we spoke up, and I think that helped a lot in managing these issues, because otherwise you just keep it in, and you know what's the worst thing of keeping it in? You People don't understand you, people don't know you need help, and they and we must miscommunicate, and then suddenly it's your problem versus my problem, and people did leave. And guess what, Tryke? I had one staff who had to let go, and he told me, when I said, if was there anything I could do better, and he said, Chris, I felt like I've never learned anything in that 6 months that I'm with you. And shit, that hurts, man. That hurts so bad, because during that time I had so many other challenges that I had to face, and I couldn't teach that person. Of course, on hindsight, he knew he was at fault too. We spoke after 2 years, of everything getting back together, and he said, he's sorry about that, because I shared this on radio, so he heard it as well, and I was being just honest, right? But yeah, I mean, just really sharing, pouring out your heart. Um, of course, with sensitivity as well, right? So as you said, you can't just share everything in negative light, because their clients still sticking with you, right? There's their team members who are still with you and who believe in your leadership. So knowing what to say and how to ask for help, I think it's really important.
I totally agree. I think I can share my story too, right? Like, I'm not really the type of person that shares the same way as you do, probably, like, right? Like, I keep most of what I feel, especially on in terms of like doubts and everything, for myself, just because I feel like I'm obligated, and like, don't follow me if you're listening to this, because this might not be the right way. But
Mhm.
just for me personally, like, I grew up in an environment where there was kind of like a father figure that kind of like stood up for the rest of the family, where it kind of like
Yes.
showed a certain strength, and where he showed a certain strength and a certain like feeling of you feel secure because he's around, right? So, like, to me, any leader will have multiple heroes that they kind of like followed growing
Mhm.
up, whether it's an athlete, an artist, a musician, like a family member, or anything. But to me, right, like, the people that resonated to me as a leader is more of always either a person who is stable in a times of calamity. You know what I mean? Because
Mm.
to me, like, being able to be reliable in these times kind of like help people follow you. I mean, from my standpoint. So we've weathered a lot of storms, to be honest, and personally,
Yes.
like, I've been through so much, but I've never really learned to share that externally, whether publicly or privately, because I felt like I just had to swallow it and just move on, because that's my choice. Like, when I chose this path to become a leader, I always felt like it came with the responsibilities that at times you just need to swallow it. But obviously, you might actually like taught me something today that I should probably be sharing more, like what you did, right? So yeah, I mean, thank you for that, man. But to me, like, what I can say is that every leader has a different philosophy on how to go about things in terms of challenges. Some share, some keep it in, some just ignore it, some will probably like face it with friends, family, or like whoever. But at the end of the day, what is inevitable as a leader is you need to have a way to cope with it, right? Because it comes with a job. So talking about
You,
of
you
the
speak about a hero, right? Can I just say that my hero comes from the world that I've grown up with, which is anime,
okay.
and yeah, I've always liked to tell people the four main ones are Doraemon, because he's so damn resourceful, and then you have Naruto, who's has a beast inside them, and but still decides to act of good faith, right? I think that's really how amazing he is. And of course, there's Luffy, and like it's all about having that friends around you while facing the challenge. Like no matter the situation, you just have faith in those friends, and that's what I had as well, right? With the Kendrick, or now with the kid, and I had a mindset group as well during that entire ordeal, where we all had our challenges, but we shared it within our private space. So maybe I should have mentioned that as well. There are some challenges that I can share in public, but most of the bigger challenges are shared in the private space, a WhatsApp group of say 10 to 15 people. And finally, my last hero that I also love to mention is Shin Chan. Shin Chan is not afraid of doing the right things, even though he's portrayed as like the naughty guy. And then, I love that, right? Because why, again, why must you do all the good things? What is good? If you're too good, then you're not having a position. And as you rightly pointed out, as leaders, we need to have a position. And by having a position, you have people who love you and you have people who hate you. And that's,
Yes.
you have to make it right. It's not a wrong thing to do. So I thought I should share you that when you talk about
Uh,
like heroes that we look up to.
can't agree more with that, right? Like obviously, like sometimes the heroes that you followed when you were growing up or like when you're old, that's kind of like a certain, like ingredient that adds up to the mix of who you are as a person. And for me personally, right, like how I really approach in terms of my approach as a leader, in terms of my leadership is really I just take care of the ones around me, right?
Mm, mm,
Because like publicly you can talk about a lot of things and people will judge it negatively or positively, but to me what really matters are my stakeholders. And when I talk about my stakeholders, it's not just my investors, it's not just my co-founders, it's like my players, our
yeah,
talents, like the backend people who are working with us, even the community. Like I take them as part of my stakeholder, as part of my stakeholder list, because I feel like if you operate that way, then you know that all the resources, time, and effort you're actually pouring into all of these stakeholders matter,
that's right.
because these are people who also care for you and who care
That's right.
for the direction of your company. So I think that's a mindset that's very important for me, and hopefully like that can guide those who are listening here. I think this is a very genuine podcast. So
Absolutely.
going in into this, like support system, obviously that's that. But where do you really find your motivation? Because obviously, like in terms of challenges, we have our different ways to cope with that. But motivation wise, you also need to kind of like channel that every time, especially when you're down. Like, what's your motivation? Why do you do what you do?
It's the blessing, bro. I mean, I'm even in this place, I'm wow, wow, so amazing. Like I feel so blessed. The more truths that I've heard, over the past few years, when as I confront some of the challenges that we face, the more I realize that I'm standing on someone's shoulders. The kind
Mhm.
of the people who are behind me, the person who invested in my first startup. The person who paid gave me a chance to work in London when I was studying in Imperial College, and all for what? All for because I just had a dream. I had a dream that I could make a lot of life easier through technology, through digital. I could do so many things and empower so many leaders to do what they do. Whether they are people or brands, because of again, technology, right? I mean, I say technology very loosely because it's not just digital, right? It could be anything. It could be the latest invention that would save, something that used to be 2 hours and now being done in just 10 seconds. And that's why people are embracing ChatGPT, right? So, what you used to do again, one day now is reduced to just 1 hour, right? So I am that I have that special ability to consume technology and benefit so many people, and I just can't see why I can't help other people to do the same. And then when they do that, right, they will save so much time that they could really do what they love, right? Because there's some things that you do for money, and some things you do what you love. Not everybody has what it takes, to be honest. You and me, we gone the sweet space of ikigai, or is it ikigai, right? Like we love what we do, we get paid for what we do, and also yeah, it makes us a lot of money, right? But not everybody is in that circle. So for those people, if I could impart with them just a little bit of how to use digital as a way to save money, save time, and make money, wow, the actual thing that they could actually do in their spare time or in their new free time, whether it's spending more with family, if that's how they roll, or inventing the latest next thing that will save our earth from the impending doom of environmental issues, or even creating solutions for minorities. Someone creating an app, for example, to measure how much leftover food you have taken, just by taking a photo and using machine learning. So the data that he scans, oh, there's how much pasta left, there's how much peas left, there's how much meat left, and the person who now owns that data, and over say a country, would now know how much leftover food is actually wasted and what can we do about it. Now these are the things that does not make money straight away. You need R&D, you need time, and you don't have that if you're wasting your time doing things manually. So really, it's really to unlock the potential of some one person, just that one person that can change the world. Like Albert Einstein or another Steve Jobs or another Bill Gates. And I just want to make that happen. So yeah, for that, I just wake up every day knowing that what I'm doing is going to produce that person.
That's amazing. That's an amazing answer, man. Like, I've talked to probably like multiple investors in the past, obviously, because if you're a startup company and you're raising money, like fortunately for me, when I raised my seed round, I got, like the first yes with my first pitch with Bitcraft. But right after that, in my PA and Series A, I kind of like went around also. Not so much, but at least I met a number of investors who I pitched to. And like whenever like I raise or like pitch to an investor, one of the questions that they ask is that right, like what's your motivation, like why are you doing this personally? Because beyond the company's like blueprint, beyond the business model, beyond the revenues, the direction, what they ask for is what are the founders like, right? Like what are they
Mhm.
about? Because your personal aspiration need to be in line with what the company wants to get to, so that in a way they're sure that you're here to stay because
That's right.
you're part of the success. So I think with the answer that you made, it kind of like shows how you are as a founder, where it's not really about the bottom line, it's not even about the company for you, it's really just being able to really unlock that technology and
Mm,
eventually unlock a certain person with that technology that you want to be able to help with or like guide or even build in the companies that you've been in.
mm.
So I guess for me, like just to answer also,
Yeah.
personally, my motivation is really, I started out in a space of esports when nobody was really fortunate to have a career. Like I was fortunate already. Like I was part of like the top three universities in the Philippines, and we had enough money to be able for me to go to that school or that university and really pursue whatever career I wanted.
Mm,
But what I realized when I joined, like esports as a competitor was the only available opportunity for one to become a pro player was just a one time thing. It's WCG back then, eventually WGT, which happened, like once or twice in a year. So to
mm.
me, like if I wanted to pursue a career in gaming, then what's the future for me? If I only have two competitions I can join in, no organizations to actually pay my salary, and there's no other path, right? So to me, like I started my journey by just trying to find that path for myself, and then eventually creating
Yeah,
that path for everybody else, because I felt like I never wanted any of the next generation of gamers to ever feel what I felt, which was kind of like a trap. So that's what keeps
exactly.
me every day.
When we met and we talked, we hit it right, and within that same year, we strike the agreement. Even though
Yes.
we're from two different countries. So that's to find another person who believes in that same passion as I do, to unlock potential of other people. Not just ourselves. That's exactly what's so beautiful about the kind of people who I think build ecosystems basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's really like I guess the curse and the challenge of having that motivation. Like if you really want to build an industry or like build an ecosystem in a certain industry, right? So obviously if you do that, it will require a lot of resources and a lot of
Mm,
people working together for it to happen. And I think it's very important that your core is coming from a point of a good intent, and really is
mm,
coming from a motivation that is beyond money, because money is just money. Like obviously that's the score that we count as an entrepreneur,
of course.
but at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like who really resonate to just money? I mean, maybe some, but most people really resonate beyond like the material things that are here in the world. So I think that's really like a good point that you raised also in terms of unlocking new people. I think if you're coming from that point, right, like a lot of people will really resonate to you.
Mm,
So in the previous episode that I did, I think we were talking about leadership on the same light. And I think one of the things that we talked about, which was really interesting, and this is something I want to ask you, was it is basically with leadership, it really requires a lot of charisma and other things. But the end all be all of it is you need to be able to entice people to follow you.
That's
Because
right.
what's the point of a leader if not if nobody is following that leader, right? So for you, like how do you entice people to follow your dreams?
So I've just gotten into a new sort of like a industry as a business coach, and it's exactly as you said, right? Leadership lives enrollment. We are always enrolling. That's what we do. Whether we're enrolling clients to join us or the community to join us, so we're always enrolling. And I feel that you know it can come in many forms, as you said, charisma and others, but it can also come from a place of honesty, of trust. When people can see that your heart's in it. In fact, I judge for quite a number of different awards when it comes to how do you identify a leader, and one of the biggest factors to show is how long that person is within the scope of things that he's been doing. I mean, that says a lot about a person, the character, right? Like 10 years to make a difference in that particular industry. And whether or not that person is successful, well, what is success? Is it the money you earn, or is it like, um, the team that you've built? I mean, the number of people. It's not. To me, it's the impact that you created, an everlasting impact in that particular space that you're doing. And as long as it benefits a number of people who eventually creates that domino effect,
Cycle.
right? That cycle. That's right. Then that to me is already successful. It's just unfortunate that in the world that we see today, how media depicts it. You got to have a lot of money, or you got to have a lot of power. I think we've seen enough to see that even the top leaders of the world with a lot of money are not really living a happy life. I think we've seen enough of that. So yeah, to me, leadership to me is just being very honest, um, and being present. You got to be present in wherever you go. I think that's what you do very well, and very consistent. And if you have these three traits, I think you're a leader.
That's some great insights. Something I've never heard before. So consistency. Um,
Consistency,
what were the three again? Consistency.
consistency, presence. You got to be present, and honesty.
That's
Mm.
that's really like good points. Something I've never heard before. So I think like with your experience in attending different leadership things, maybe that's where you learned it. But I can agree. I can agree 100%. I feel like with honesty builds
You know that
trust.
one person, Queen Elizabeth. She is
Okay.
somebody that a lot of people have not seen at all, but yet every time she does something, it's screened on TV, and a lot of people that I know for sure they have no relevance at all to the Queen, but yet they stay tuned and they're so interested in whatever she does. And what does she have, right? She shows those three things, right? The honesty in the sense that like she has the heart on the hand. Whatever she does it because like that she's like that. And then the presence. She's always present. She's there. She's at the launch of this, the launch of that. And finally, it's the consistency. That same Queen Elizabeth that you knew 10 years, 20 years, 30 years ago is the
It's the
same
same.
person she was until she passed away. So, and that's why she's a leader without even being a direct leader. But yeah, that's just one example that I've heard.
That's amazing. So like obviously like leaders in general are either developed or born. Like this is something that people always talk about. Like for you, like is a leader born or like developed? Like if he or she is developed, then what will it take for a leader to be developed for you?
This is a really big question. I mean, we talked about because I'm in the social enterprise space as well, and we always wondered, can we teach entrepreneurship? Where there's triple bottom line, right? People, planet, profit. And I think the real answer is that you it's not a leader is not born. It can definitely be developed, but they have to experience that thing. You can't fake the experience, and then for that person to pursue that path of whatever that person is going to do. Unless, of course, you're talking about a copy paste businessman, right? Where you see a model somewhere, you copy it somewhere because you know that's going to make a lot of money. Well, to me, that's not, it's not wrong, but it's not, whether you
Innovation.
call them an entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur solves a problem, right? That's what they do. They don't just make money, right? They solve an actual problem. So to me, yeah, you a leader it can be created. No, a leader is developed, not born, but have gone through something. And for that reason, why there's a lot of people who are covered, and they're protected, which is what a lot of parents do in Asia, right? That's an unfortunate situation. And then you don't come out, you don't develop leaders from that kind of space.
Yeah, I guess I totally agree, right? Like, at the end of the day, resilience is taught in the most challenging times.
That's right.
So,
That's right. You can't go
I,
to university to learn, yeah, resilience.
that's true. So I guess like I'm going into the final part of our podcast, right? Like I'm sure a lot of people follow you or maybe have listened to this podcast trying to understand what does a leader have to go through in order for them to become good or best or better, you know? So like what will be your advice to all the listeners who want to become CEOs one day?
Well, today we have quite a lot of philosophers that resonates with us, and one of them is Simon Sinek. And the big question that he likes to say is the why, right? Many of us, unfortunately, don't know why we exist, and those are the people who may have the potential to do something to create a change that they want to see, but their why, unfortunately, is not strong enough. And that's the thing that I want, or everyone is reading this, or watching this or hearing this, to ask really what's their why, and is it strong enough? And if it's not strong enough, maybe that's not the why that they've always thought about. And to understand or know what their why is, they have to explore, right? Don't just because you're in this whatever industry that you're in for the last 5 years and you're not seeing any change, that you think that, hey, you know what, I'm just going to stay in this path because it's safest path to be in. Like, sure, it might get you somewhere, build your good life, create a family, and pass on, and that's fine to you. But if you have a desire to do something, to see, you saw a problem and you want to change it, then you got to really explore that direction. Talk to the people in that community. Go down to that path. As I mentioned earlier, you can't be a leader. Or you mentioned it, right? Like, you can't be a leader if you didn't go through that one particular thing. And you can do that, right? It's something within your control. You can go to Cambodia and see, that there's so many mines still left around the ground, and there's one guy who now create his whole life effort to remove those mines, because somebody could just walk and get their legs blown off. So he's seen it in action, and that's why he's now doing that. And he's made his life path doing so. So you can't be, you won't know your why until you actually go and explore the world. And once you explore the world and you find your why, I promise you it'll be the best ride of your life.
100% agree. I mean, I think it's the same thing for me. For my advice, at least just to be practical, I think look into the different types of leaders that there are in the world, because with leadership comes different philosophies, right? And I
That's
think
right.
after you figured out your why, you need to figure out what type of leader do you want to be. And most likely,
Mm,
you're not gonna be a copycat of a certain leader that you're following, but just get the things that you like in each of the leaders that you follow, and also get samples of the leaders you don't want to follow, because sometimes knowing what not to do is also one of the bigger learnings that you need to have in life. So to me, I think on the second step after what Chris said, on figuring out your why, like look into the different leadership philosophies that are out there, and then eventually form your own identity as a leader. And then it's going to be a bumpy ride for sure, especially if you want to become a CEO one day. So if you're getting to a point of you're impatient because you haven't really gotten the chance, or if you haven't really you haven't taken the next step, what I can say is that just proves that you're not ready yet. Because whatever things that you do prior to becoming CEO will really prepare you for what's about to come. Because there is no book that will teach you how to become a
You
CEO
know,
of a company you'll eventually run. Because what Steve Jobs has done with Apple is totally different from what I'm going through in tier one, what you're going through in your company, because every company has different challenges. So rather than looking at all of the frameworks that's available in the world, of course, you as a person, as a leader, need to be whole and need to be clear on how do you want to go about things, because if you are confused yourself, then everybody around you will be confused too, right?
that's right. You had the clarity. That's right.
Yeah, you need to have that clarity. So I guess that's just my advice. And again, Chris, like, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're super busy, like running things, and good to hear from you again. And I'm always thankful for all the learnings I've been getting in this podcast myself.
Yeah, I just want to say, Trike, that it's wonderful, what you're doing with this podcast. I know for a fact that it was, a long time coming, but many things happen along the way, and you stick. I mean, this is what a leader does, right? They don't move the goal, right? It takes just a longer time, but they stick to the goal and they make it happen. And I really admire you for this and for all the inspiration that you put forth. I'm just behind you, watching what you do. So thank you so much for the inspiration. And I'm so thankful that two of us today, we're still surviving, we're still doing what we're doing, and I can't wait to see what happens for us in the future. So thanks, Trike, for doing
Yeah.
this.
Thank you, Chris. Good luck. And that's it for More Than Just Games. Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.